So we also need to consider that these fat cells could just be holding on to that water before they release it, and you get what is called the whoosh effect. I wanted to share this really important information because I got a lot of good feedback from my clients, and I thought that it would be very, very helpful if you are someone that's looking to optimize fat loss while maintaining muscle. So I did a presentation for my team last night. I do team calls every Monday and Thursday, and we touched on this topic, and it sparked a lot of really good conversation. And I really want to share it with everyone because I think that even if you know what I'm about to talk about, it's good to hear it again and realize that there's many reasons why the scale might not be moving when you're on prep, and also how we can keep muscle while trying to get as lean as possible. Okay, so I want to dive in. So how do we optimize fat loss while maintaining muscle? So fat loss is about being in a calorie deficit. So we create this deficit via diet, activity, movement. We don't want to start too aggressive because then we have nowhere to go, number one, and number two, that's when we can run into issues with potential muscle breakdown, which we don't want to do. Muscle retention requires resistance training and maintaining resistance training in both intensity and volume. So it requires progressive stimulus to the muscle, and also protein intake is critical. So the magic number is a gram per pound of lean body mass. However, in the bodybuilding world, we don't have access to DEXA scans every day to tell us that amount. So we usually aim for anywhere between 0.8 to 1.5 grams per pound. Okay, so that's 0.8 to 1.5 grams of protein per pound of body weight, total body weight. So fat loss is the energy deficit, right? So the body uses stored fat when it's in a caloric deficit, and when energy that we're intaking, so food that we're intaking, is less than our energy output, which is what we want to be in. So these stored fat, the stored triglycerides, are then broken down into glycerol, fatty acids, which are broken down further as far as carbon dioxide and water to then be excreted from your body. They are used for energy. This process is fat oxidation and also lipolysis of these fat cells. It is triggered by hormones in the body like norepinephrine and things like that when you exert yourself and use energy. Why do we burn fat instead of muscle? The body prefers to use glycogen and fat first before tapping into muscle stores because it's easier for the body to use carbs, glycogen, and fat for energy before using a bunch of energy to break down muscle tissue for energy. So that is the body's last resort. However, it can still happen when you're in an extreme calorie deficit like a competition prep. Okay, so we need to focus on a few things so that we don't lose muscle during a prep, and that's adequate protein intake, that's resistance training, and that is a controlled caloric deficit. So we don't want to start off too aggressive. So there's also hormonal factors in fat loss. So we have insulin and fat storage. Insulin is a very anabolic hormone. High insulin levels actually prevent the body from starting up the fat oxidation process. And the high insulin levels is synonymous with high heavy carb meals. So if you're eating a ton of carbs and your body's pumping out a lot of insulin, usually you're most likely and hopefully in a bulk because you will not be prone to losing fat in that situation. Keeping insulin levels stable help the body to be able to start that fat oxidation process more efficiently and effectively. We also want to look at cortisol. Cortisol is not the enemy. However, Elevated cortisol levels for prolonged periods of time lead to fat retention, especially around that midsection area. Okay, so we need to manage stress. We need to make sure sleep's in check, recovery's in check, hydration's in check. These are all crucial to make sure that we are in a state to lose body fat. Why can the weight scale go up before it comes down? Many competitors panic when they're in their diet phase and they see the scale doing weird things, fluctuating, going up. There's reasons why this happens, and here's why. So the first reason would be after a refeed, right? When your body ingests carbs, 1 gram of glycogen, when the carbs get broken down, 1 gram of glycogen can store up to 3 grams of water with it. Okay, so when we reintroduce carbs or we have a refeed, this water weight can increase. It's not fat gain, but it can be seen on the body scale. Okay, when the glycogen then becomes depleted, so we've weight trained, we've done cardio, you will then see this water weight drop on the scale again, and you will see some fluctuation. So that is very normal. Next, we need to look into sodium and water balance, electrolyte balances. Sometimes increased sodium can cause some water retention. Sodium is also not the energy. You need salt. You should be salting all your meals. If you are someone that goes to the gym and sweats a lot, you need to salt, but it can cause some weird fluctuations on the scale. It is not fat gain. It is just fluid shifts, and proper hydration regulates this. This is why we like to make our own meals, add our own salt amounts, keep everything very consistent, because if we're eating out here and there, we don't know how much they add, and then that can affect the consistency of the data we're getting from the scale. So weight scale can also go up from inflammation from heavy training days. So after a heavy leg session, the muscle holds extra water and inflammation because it is trying to repair itself after you just spent an hour and a half tearing it. So this can also make the weight scale spike for a day or two. It is not fat gain. It is very normal. Then we also want to dive into fat cell changes. So when these fat cells go through the oxidation process, they actually end up filling up with water and carbon dioxide, which you then pee, sweat, and breathe out before the fat cell shrinks down really tiny and doesn't become visible on your body anymore. Okay, so we also need to consider that these fat cells could just be holding on to that water before they release it, and you get what is called the whoosh effect. And the whoosh effect is basically when you see that scale kind of plateauing or even slowly increasing, even though you're following your diet perfectly, you're doing all your cardio, you're drinking all your water, then usually all of a sudden, one night, you get a big drop. 3 pounds, 5 pounds, something like that. That is called the whoosh effect. And then last and not least, we need to look into the menstrual cycle for female athletes. Women, at certain times of the month, we weigh more than others, and that is usually before and during menstruation, and it can be very misleading and mask actual fat loss on the body scale. Okay, so just because your body scale is doing weird things does not mean that you're not losing fat. Okay, be very open with your coach about this. Talk to them. They can and should explain kind of why they think the scale's doing weird things. However, we want to zoom out and look and make sure our trend is on that downward slope. Okay, so how can we use cardio and energy expenditure to get lean without losing muscle? So we want to look at cardio as a tool. It is not the primary driver of fat loss. Okay, we want to start really low and slowly increase it over a cut or a prep to use as a tool when our metabolism starts to slow down because we are eating less. There are 2 types of cardio that I like to use with my clients. That would be HIIT cardio and LIST cardio. So high intensity interval training versus low. The low intensity steady state is less impact, can do it daily. whereas the high intensity interval training should only be a few times a week. It is a much more impact on the body, but it is quite effective. So let's talk about fasted cardio really quick. Many studies saying it doesn't really matter fasted or fed state for cardio. I like doing fasted cardio personally because then it splits up my day more and I can focus on cardio in the morning, weights later on. If you have lots of cardio prescribed to you, it's also good to split it up. And honestly, doing fasted cardio session, you feel like you just had 3 cups of coffee and you feel amazing. So I think it's very personalized. I think it's a great tool to use to start your day and get you off on the right track and save some time later in the day by pushing cardio earlier. So let's dive a little bit into supplements and PEDs for fat loss and muscle retention. So supplements to support fat loss, we have caffeine. It is very safe unless, of course, you have heart issues or you get very anxious or jittery from it, but it can help with energy levels pre-workout. It can help with appetite control and very good tool to use in a fat loss phase. Then we dive a little bit deeper and we get into the not natural side of things, which we're looking at yohimbine or ephedrine. These are both tools to use, both stimulant based as well, to increase your metabolism and help your body oxidize fat at a faster rate. Then we dive even deeper. We go into things like clenbuterol or T3. These are very potent. Clenbuterol is a very strong stimulant, comes with risks, comes with side effects, but very effective. And T3, thyroid hormone, also very effective at raising your metabolism, but should be used with caution as well because it can shut down your natural thyroid production. It can cause side effects like hair loss, put you in a state of hypothyroidism, which isn't good as well for your body, but it is a tool that can be used. Then we look at anabolics. Anabolics are not fat burning, fat oxidizing. Anabolics help retain muscle in a deficit. Okay, so anabolics speed up protein synthesis within the muscle to repair them faster, and on a bulk to help them grow a lot faster. Okay, every single anabolic is a derivative of testosterone. Okay, so all should be used with caution. There are no safe steroids for women. They all have risks. There are just some with a lower androgenic ratio, anabolic androgenic ratio, which then usually women can use if they so choose, but there are still a lot of risks associated. Last but not least, we're going to talk about growth hormone, supports fat loss, very anti-aging, helps with sleep and things like that. Also has risks in terms of insulin sensitivity management, but it really does help with recovery and usually taken during a fat loss phase to help that process along. We want to make sure that recovery and stress management is also taken care of to prevent muscle loss. So we need to prioritize sleep. Okay, we want to make sure you're in a cool, dark bedroom and you're getting the proper amount. We want to make sure that you keep your coach informed with hunger levels, energy levels, how you feel in your recovery. When you're on a contest prep, especially when you're near the end, hunger is going to be extremely high, energy is going to be extremely low. These are normal, but still good to communicate with your coach, okay? Then we want to minimize stress and overtraining, which is very hard to do in my opinion in bodybuilding, but excess stress keeps that cortisol super high, which then can sometimes promote muscle breakdown. So we want to make sure stress management is a priority. So how can we ensure real fat loss and not just water weight loss or worse, muscle loss? We want to look at long-term trends and not focus on daily fluctuations. Okay? Daily fluctuations might be all over the place. We want to zoom out and look and compare the trend of data over time to make sure we are on the right trajectory. Then we want to use progress photos. So comparing progress photos is a very, very good tool to know if you're losing fat because you can visually see the difference. Also, you can use measurements on top of that if you want to do a waist measurement, hip measurement, something like that. You should also be monitoring your strength. However, you should not be losing strength, especially at the beginning of a fat loss phase and potentially through the whole thing. Near the end of a competition prep, when you're super, super, super low calorie, potentially some strength will obviously suffer there. But at that point, we are not aiming to be strong. We are aiming to be extremely lean for the stage. And then last but definitely not least, we want to keep protein very, very high to preserve that lean muscle mass. So that is all I have for today. I hope that this helps you know when you're in a fat loss phase, how to make sure that fat loss is actually happening to minimize muscle loss and hopefully not have any, and to have a successful cut or prep. Please comment below if you'd like me to cover another topic. I'm happy to. I cover a ton of topics with my team every Thursday night, and I'm happy to share more with you here. Please subscribe. I will be back soon with more videos, and we will chat soon.